how I get my rental properties ready with less time and money. All right, guys, we're gonna talk all about getting rental properties ready with less time and money. And the first thing I'm gonna talk about here is probably gonna surprise you, but this is the number one key to get them ready with less time and money. And the key is finding the right tenant. You see, you deal with all these issues of having to get rent ready and cleaning and those types of things if you hire the wrong person to be a tenant. And I wanna make sure you understood what I said there. Hire the right tenant. I look at this entire process as a job interview. I look at anybody I'm going to give the keys to as giving the keys to a $250,000 or a $500,000 asset. The mentality I'm asking myself is, why should I give you the keys to the kingdom, this $500,000, $250,000 asset? Why should I give you these keys? And how well are you going to take care of this property? That's what I like to ask myself. And in some cases, I even ask the individual saying, why should I do this? And how do I know you're going to take care of my property? That's the most important thing, because they can do so much damage in a property that it can be more than the rents that they've ever paid you. What I like to do to have the least amount of time and money and the least amount of rent ready is I typically like to rent my properties for $50 less than market, sometimes $100 less than market, meaning if everything on the market is renting for $1,000, I'm going to rent my property for $950. I rent my property for $950 rather than $1,000. Everything else is going for $1,000 and mine is in just as good a condition. So you'd think I'm losing $50 a month. I'm not. I'll show you how in just a minute here. So what happens is, first off, I get flooded with applications, which means I can be very particular and very picky about who I rent to, which is really, really important, because then I have the pick of the litter. I get to decide which one I think is going to take care of my property the very, very best. And I can be a little bit hard on the tenants, basically saying, hey, you got to take great care of my property. I don't want to let anybody just in here. Do you have a toolbox? Do you know how to do things? Like, I can be very particular on those things. The other thing with that is the way that I set up my rentals is I require that my tenant finds a new tenant. So if a tenant wants to move out, they can move out one time a year, and it's in June, which is the best time for me because schools are out and people are moving and those things, not in the winter time. And if they want to move out prior to that time or even at that time, what I do is I then put some ads out and they show the property to the new potential tenants. And if they do that, I'll give them a performance bonus if they actually do that, which works out extremely well in making sure I don't have any tenant turnover. Now, if I hire the right person, I'm not going to be dealing with having to redo the carpets and redo the paints and do all that type of stuff. Now, in contrast, if I hire the wrong person, I'm going to have to take care of the paints and the carpets and those things, which there's a couple of things. It's not just the cost of the paint and not just the cost of the carpet. It's also the downtime where you don't have a tenant in there. My goal is to have them trading keys in the driveway. When one guy is moving out, the new guy is moving in, and that's happening right in the driveway. They exchange keys. And guess what the beauty of this is? I never lose a day of rent, because getting the rental ready and spending the money on it is half of the equation. The other half is I have lost revenue coming in. And so if I can not lose that revenue, and it all starts with under renting the property. I don't lose the revenue for rent ready. I don't have the additional expense because the people I'm renting to take care of the property. You see, you want to be renting to people that get their carpets cleaned every so often. You want to be renting to people that if they see a ding in the hallway, they want to touch that up, because that's the type of people they are. That's the type of place that they want to live in. Now, one of the ways you can do this and find this out is actually by talking to landlords, not necessarily their current landlord. See, I know landlords that will say almost anything to get rid of a bad tenant. And so if you call their current landlord and they say, hey, they're fantastic, that may not be accurate. But if you go to the next landlord where he does not have an interest in them getting out of the property, he's going to give it to you really, really straight. So I like to go back one landlord and talk to that landlord. Did they pay on time? Did they have issues? How did they take care of the property? Did you have to do any work after? Could you rent it immediately after they moved out of the property? See, that's the key here. If I don't have to do anything and I lose no downtime, and somebody else can move right into the property, because the type of person I'm renting to takes care of the house, so that anybody could walk in and rent that house with just normal cleanup, vacuuming and dusting or that type of stuff, then that's the type of person I want. And as a matter of fact, the best tenants that you're dealing with, they want to leave the property nice because they feel a sense of responsibility for that. They want to vacuum the floors and clean that up before the new person comes in, because that's just the type of people they are. Now, those types of people like to find good deals. And if I have a good deal out there, they're going to want to not only do that, but also stay longer. And that's the other thing I'm going to talk about here is when you under rent those properties just mildly, you save so much money in repairs, rent readies, time, but you also get a tenant to stay there longer. We like to tell people we are long-term renters, landlords, and I'm looking for long-term renters. So typically our tenants are staying in properties for about 5 years, and that's because we're such a good deal. But every year I'm increasing the price, but I'm looking at the market and saying, hey, I want to be $50 less because I'm going to tell the tenant, where can you go to get a better deal than this? If you can find one, let me know, because I want to be the best price. But in return, I want to have the best tenants, and I want you to take the best care of my property. Now, for some of you, you're like, this is just a complete mind shift, because a lot of real estate investors think about just low income, slumlording it, do as little as possible, get as much money as you possibly can. And believe me, I've been down that road before. That's how I started my real estate investment career, and it's with rental properties with plexes, trying to get as much as you can, squeeze every dime out of it. The problem with those types of things is it's very management intense. You're typically working with tenants that are not taking great care of the properties. There's typically lots of repairs. And so I believe the very best thing you can do to get rent ready with less time and money is thinking ahead of the game and hiring the right tenant to begin with, so you can avoid all of the headaches that come along with that. Now, before you're ready to get your house ready for a renter, you've got to find a great property, or it's not going to work out for you. You've got to find this great deal. And so one of the best ways to find a house in need of repairs and fix it up and use it as a rental, I cover that entire strategy in this video. Click over here to watch it. I think you'll really enjoy it and get a lot of value from it. So click on this video and check out how to find properties that can become great rental properties. Make it a very profitable day.